How do you possibly piece together a world that completely vanished thousands of years ago? I mean, there are no photos, no videos, hardly any written records. It's kind of like the ultimate cold case. So today, we're going to become historical detectives, and we'll be looking at two very different sets of clues, ancient books and mysterious burials, to unlock the secrets of ancient India.
All right, so here's our game plan. First, we'll talk about how we even begin to unlock the ancient past. Then we'll dive into our first big clue, the world of the Rig Veda. After that, it's all about the secrets hidden in stone, before we try to put it all together to decode their society and look at some incredible clues from the grave.
So let's get right into it. The first step is just framing the mystery itself. How on earth do you solve a case when the trail has been cold for literally thousands of years, and the evidence is so faint and broken apart?
I mean, this is the central question, isn't it? How do we really know anything about what life was like for people 3,500 years ago? Well, we have to become detectives. We have to look for the clues and the things they left behind.
And this brings us to our two main sources of intel. On one hand, we've got ancient texts, the words, the prayers, the stories they passed down. And on the other hand, we have these ancient tombs, the actual physical structures they built and the stuff they buried with their dead. So let's start with the words.
Our first evidence file is one of the oldest literary sources in the entire world. It's an incredible collection of sacred hymns known as the Rig Veda.
And when we say old, we really, really mean it. The Rig Veda was composed about 3,500 years ago. Just think about that. That is a staggering amount of time for any body of knowledge to survive.
So what is it exactly? Well, the Rig Veda is this huge collection of over 1,000 hymns. They're called sukta, which basically means well said. And they really are beautiful, complex poems praising different gods, like Agni, the god of fire, Indra, a powerful warrior god, and Soma, which was a special plant they used in rituals. But here's the wild part. For centuries, the Rig Veda wasn't a book at all. It was a completely oral tradition. Priests would teach their students to memorize every single syllable, every word, every sentence, passing it down perfectly from one generation to the next, long before it was ever actually written down.
The language itself, Vedic Sanskrit, is also a fascinating clue. It belongs to what's called the Indo-European language family, which makes it a really distant cousin of, well, English. You can actually see the echo in some basic words. The Sanskrit word for mother is mater. Sound familiar?
Historians just pore over these hymns looking for clues. Take this one line. It's from a dialogue between a sage and two rivers, the Beas and the Sutlej. He's asking them to let him cross safely. Now, it seems really simple, but it is packed with information.
And this is the real detective work. From that one line about chariots and carts, we learn that horses and cows were absolutely vital to their way of life. And because the hymn names the Beas and Sutlej rivers, historians can actually pinpoint the region where this poem was likely composed. It's amazing. Okay, let's move on to our second evidence file. We're shifting from words to stones now, looking at these massive structures that have stood for millennia, like silent sentinels marking the final resting places of the dead.
These are called megaliths, which literally just means big stones. And starting around 3,000 years ago, people all across the Indian subcontinent began arranging these huge boulders to create these really elaborate burial sites.
Some of them were simple stone circles on the surface, but others were these complex underground chambers, like this one called a cyst. And see that small opening? That's a porthole, and it suggests that these tombs might have been reused for different family members over time.
And listen, building these was no small task. It took finding the right kind of stone, breaking and hauling these massive boulders, and then carefully putting them all together. This tells us that these communities were really organized and capable of these huge, coordinated projects.
But the most important clues are what archaeologists find inside. Alongside the dead, they almost always find a specific set of items. This distinctive pottery, iron tools and weapons, and even the skeletons of horses along with their equipment.
And the presence of iron? That's a total game changer. Finding artifacts like this dagger and these axes shows us we're in a whole new technological era, one that's very different from the earlier Bronze Age civilizations in the area, like the Harappans.
Okay, so we've got our two big sets of evidence, the words from the Rig Veda and the objects from the megaliths. Now for the fun part. Let's see what kind of picture they paint when we start putting them together. The Rig Veda describes society based on work and community. You had priests, or Brahmins, who did all the rituals. You had leaders, called Rajas, who were skilled warriors, but don't think of them as kings with big palaces in capital cities. And the people who wrote the hymns called themselves Aryas, and they set themselves apart from their opponents, the Dasas or Dasyas.
And the burials show this social difference in stunning detail. At one site, Brahmagiri, one skeleton was found buried with 33 gold beads, stone beads, and copper bangles. Others buried right nearby, they had only a few simple pots. I mean, that stark difference suggests a society with chiefs and followers, with rich and poor.
So, let's zoom in on one specific site, a place called Inamgaon, to see just how much we can learn when we focus on one location. This is where the story gets really, really detailed.
Here, archaeologists found a truly unique burial. A man was placed inside a massive clay jar in the courtyard of the largest house in the whole settlement. This was not a normal burial. The location, the size of the house, the special container, it all points to this person being a very, very important figure, maybe even the chief of the community.
And it's not just about death. By studying the animal bones and the seeds they found at the site, we can actually reconstruct their diet. We know they were farmers, growing wheat, barley, and rice. And we also know they were hunters and gatherers, eating all kinds of animals and collecting local fruits.
So by combining the sacred words of the Rig Veda with the silent stones of the megaliths, we get these incredible, detailed whispers of a lost world. But it really makes you wonder, doesn't it? With every new discovery, what other amazing stories from our deep past are still out there, just waiting to be